Can you believe it? We are already staring February straight in the eye. 2019 has kicked off in earnest, and according to a local trend spotter and a regular guest on this program, Dion Chang, we're in for an interesting year. And this is the bit we want to talk about, where the confluence of technology, business and government is concerned. And you say this is disturbing, Dion.
We've kind of heard about the AI and the algorithms, all of those kind of things, nudge theories, which are starting to get into retail and marketing in quite a big way. I think no retailer worth their salt is not using some kind of algorithm or a way to nudge you. We realized after the Cambridge Analytica scandal is that we're not using those social media products, or we're not using the products like search engines. We are the product, and we're being sold off to advertisers. So where this is starting to go is, A, it's becoming more invasive into our private lives, and I think people are getting really spooked about devices listening to them, all of that kind of tracking that's going off. But now what you're starting to see are surveillance states, and China leads the way with that. So they've got one of the biggest facial recognition programs, and they want to get their, 3-odd billion citizens all on one facial recognition program. And already some of the police have been issued augmented reality glasses. So if you are a known felon, I'll be scanning the crowd and your face pops up, they can arrest you immediately. While people say, well, that sort of seems to be a science fiction kind of version of that, I had a friend that I saw in London in December, and she said she went into a hotel in Hong Kong and she hadn't been there for about 4 years. And as she walked towards the desk, they said, "Oh, good afternoon, so-and-so, we haven't seen you for quite a while." And she said, "Well, how did you know that was me?" And they said, "Well, the facial recognition caught you at the door. It alerted us onto that."
The desk clerk just didn't have a good memory.
Yeah,
it was
and
more
so
than
it was just, it was there, you know. So you're getting that in retail and in hospitality and in travel now. And then it's a slippery slope of where that just starts going into the government cohesion.
So, how far down the slippery slope then are we, Dion, in that respect? Are we powerless? Has a line been crossed in that respect?
There's a really big pushback internationally about we own our data, we should own our own data, and people shouldn't be trading us off with that. So I think the line has been crossed. It's really early days yet, because we still prefer convenience to privacy. We might say that we like our privacy, but we actually don't. The convenience is a far better option. And when people say, no, but what about data policies and everything? I said, every time you just say accept and you don't read those terms and conditions, and nobody reads the terms and conditions, you are giving your permission away anyway. So when you start looking at where that slippery slope is, it goes into social credits. And this is where the nudge theories and what we're seeing with different platforms, fitness platforms and everything, will reward you with a good behavior, but they don't talk about the demeriting of those points. So it's starting very, very slowly in South Africa, your driver's demerit points. So you'll start being demerited until you can't do that. But if anybody's watched an episode of Black Mirror called Freefall, that's where we're going. So in the Alibaba ecosystem, which is one of the biggest on the planet, one of the apps in that system is called the Vima Social Credit app. So if you pay your fines on time, you are a good citizen, you get preferential boarding onto airplanes, all of those kind of things. But what you're starting to see is the demeriting now of if you don't pay your fines, then we'll just take those points off. And already there are reports of young Chinese students going to universities and not being allowed because their parents' social credit scores are not up to scratch. So you've got to start kind of doing that. And I've seen, you know who you are out there watching this, you pay different groceries on different credit cards because you're trying to hack the Vitality system as well.
How pervasive?
The rise of a plant-based diet, the free from glucose, free from lactose, all of those kind of things. We've suddenly discovered all of our intolerances, and now we're starting to buy almond milk, we're buying lactose milk, all of those kind of things. And you're starting to see this really starting to rise. I mean, I'm going to offend a lot of vegans out there, but the vegans are getting even more militant than they have
nothing
been.
Worse than a militant vegan. Yes, okay.
But you're starting to see brands respond to that very, very quickly.
In what respect?
In terms of ready supermarkets internationally, ready-made meals. Even here, you'll see it in our supermarkets. A much higher percentage of vegetarian options. You'll see, the vegan options in restaurants. It's becoming a lot more mainstream. So even you get the vegan debate when there was the sacrificing of a lamb on Clifton Beach. People were saying, well, you eat processed meat anyway. So it's moral conversations and lots of undercurrents going through there.
And finally then, if I'm on my way to that supermarket to get the vegan meal,
Yes.
in time I might get into a taxi.
That
but
flies.
I won't be driving it, or there won't
Yes.
be a driver, and you're suggesting
Flying taxis.
flying taxis.
There's two cities that have already started their autonomous services. So Helsinki, a little bit later in about March this year, but Phoenix, Arizona has one commercial trial going. So there have been a lot of tests which have not been on commercially available, but now that tipping point's reached. So what's interesting about 2019 is there's been so many policies or benchmarks rested on 2020, saying we will do this by 2020, we will have digitization by 2020. And so this is a bridging year. So all of those policies, and what we're tracking already are so many cities setting down drone policies. So Mumbai is one of them. It's the first Indian city to actually say this is how it's going to work. And when we get passenger drones, the technology is called vertical takeoff and landing. So Airbus is working on 3 versions. The co-founder of Google's started pre-sales last year. You know, people think this is an imagined future, but it's if pre-sales started last year, then it's really starting to escalate. And I think what is interesting about this is we're going to relook the urban landscape very differently. And suddenly, when you get these transportation hubs, you're going to have hyperloops or trains underground. You're going to have these driverless drop-off zones. You're not going to need parking areas anymore. And suddenly, the gold is the rooftops of all of your buildings. And somebody in Miami has already started converting their structures for a transportation hub on the top of their roofs.
You've got to come back soon. South Africa's top trends analyst, Dion Chang, as always. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Thank you.
Coming up, why the age-old art of storytelling is set to become increasingly important for brands wanting to connect with consumers.